Chalice and the Sword, podcast number 2 with Rev Zoe. It is October 8th, 2019, in the beautiful Casa de Aloha in the Southern California desert. This is kind of exciting. I get to blab for a little longer than I'm usually used to with the Sunday salutations. So I thought we would luxuriate and have a guest speaker here at the beginning just for a little bit. Without further ado, this is she doesn't like to be called by her name. Then that will be clear because of her topic. Well, okay. Without further ado, this is Academie de Offensive. Is that correct? I'm cutting you some slack since it's only your second podcast, but it's Academie de Offensive. Okay, well, without further ado, this is Academie de Offensive. So as Rev Zoe said, I'd like to just be called Academie de Offensive. You can call me ACF. There's lots of popularity with being called initials lately, and you know it's a really great segue because it gives people a sense of community and connection to have a quick way to refer to yourself that's makes people stop and think. You know, they have to think before they address you, which already is a step in the right direction for helping our current culture of this world. I mean, just think about it, if I may, since we have the luxury of time and indulgence here at this podcast number 2, I hear, for Rev Zoe, is just, you know, when we can, quite frankly, make people pause and consider who we are, so then they could actually, you know, understand that we deserve proper recognition. And I know that, you know, the people who are listening, I'm assuming, really want to potentially, I don't know Rev Zoe's audience, but that's irrelevant. I'm trying to shake the world up and make it a major following to really, really bring the art form of being offended to a really, worldwide accessibility percentage of people, from old people, people who are later in their years, to young people who may be young in years but are brilliant, like this Greta, who is, you know, I can't even start talking about Greta without actually tearing up. So I'm gonna. Oh, I'd rather you not. Can you just keep it on the topic? Yes, Rev. Yes. But I from everybody, even the animals, even when I see my cats, and, you know, I have about 12, and I realize that's a horrible, you know, I'm not trying to support stereotypes, and if I've offended somebody, you already get a gold star. That's fabulous. Anyway, we want to bring offensiveness to a whole level of priority in people's lives, so they feel special. So then everybody in their life feels special, because my goal, my ultimate utopian goal, is that everyone, from older folks or people who have more years, and people who have less years, and everything in between, are practicing the profound art form of being offended. Because then you're always worried, right? You're worried about other people. See, it sounds kind of strange, but if you're worried about being offended, then you're worried about others being offended by you. And to me, it really would be a stellar, easy way to get people to pay attention. And, you know, it's sort of my salutation, I think I hear Rev Zoe speaking of, to Jesus's treat thy neighbor as thyself. I mean, I don't think I'm crazy. Is that a misunderstanding? This is Rev Zoe. We will be having a debrief on Academy's discussion a little later, but I'm going to let her continue on. Well, anyway, as I was saying, I have a deep regard for Jesus the Christ, and this is my way of making that come to the light of day, to full fruition here. What do they say? This is my gift to the world, to bring the art form, and I would say philosophy, if I dare be bold, today, October 8th, 2019, the actual philosophy of being offended. I mean, let me break this down. I don't know how I did on the front end, but, here's the thing. In my book, I think Rev Zoe often talks about paying attention, and everyone, all the pundits are always talking about present time. Well, I have spent hours pondering the art of being offended, and like I said already, how that connects to Jesus the Christ teaching to treat thy neighbor as thyself, is that if you really are, and I've been practicing being offended, gosh, I think I have been called the master, and I blush. I would say I'm on the road to mastery. I definitely am. I have some, let's just sort of say I have some markings on my lapel of great conquests of being offended in the world and recognition by greater folk than me. I would say true masters of being offended, but let me not digress. That this is a perfect way to practice being in the moment. To be offended, really, it's like you're paying attention, it makes you listen, you're aware, like hyper aware of your surroundings, the people around you. And that's just the first part in this. Today is the first day I've called it an actual philosophy, the art of being offended. Offended as a form of humility, if I was to take it to the utmost level of regard that I see it as a venue of true humanity, of bringing humanity to the depths of understanding of how to treat their fellow man with regard, is this. Yes, that's it. I've discovered it just today on Rev Zoe's podcast. The skillful mastery of being offended as a way to bring peace on earth. And to really treat your fellow men with regard, because it forces you to have to be hyper vigilant with what you're doing and saying and where you are and who's around you. I just see this as brilliant. And the other thing is that we have this magnificent community of people who now have so much awareness of themselves and their wounding. And so that deeper, isn't that what you call knowing thyself? So they really know themselves. In fact, they are quite taken with their wounding, and that's great for our work, because the more they're aware of their wounding and the things that make them feel offended, then they have a deeper understanding of themselves and how to then speak to others and request others to treat them right. And that, to me, is just a profound practice of self-responsibility, knowing what you want and stating it clearly 24/7, even in your sleep. That's the goal I'm going, is the responsibility, personal responsibility to constantly state what you're feeling and what you want. I think that is profound. That is a profound gift to this earth. I'm having my own moment over here. I finally got it. That is like fantastic. And what a gift to other people to constantly let them know. I mean, think of it, kids. Letting them know. No, I don't want to be called Betty. I want to be called Betage. No, please don't call me Mister. How come you're assuming I'm feeling like a man today? No, please don't call me Miss. How do you know I've never been married, and how you know I don't want to be married? I mean, do you see the possibilities of the poetic injunction of our lives? It would be like it's like getting a B12 shot for your creativity. And then in that moment of discussion, you're saying, no, don't call me Batage, don't call me Betty, call me Batage, and don't call me Miss, and don't call me Mister. It opens up, and the other person in my world is like, oh, thank you for letting me know. I'm so happy that you are so comfortable with me, and you have such regard for yourself to let me know how to treat you and call you. I am so grateful. I was feeling so self-centered and selfish at that moment. And I was also not aware. Thank you for bringing me back to the present moment. And you get to say, oh, it's my highest honor to be able to do so. I just see endless possibilities. Endless possibilities. And here's the thing. Again, I have to be honest. This is a plug for my Academie de Offensive. There is the basic entry. I haven't even talked about the overall sort of mass goal of the Academie de Offensive for. Well, I won't speak of it now. It's the long game, if they say. But the basic would be the equivalent of bachelor's degree. Then we have the graduate degree, and then we have the PhD. And to be honest, I'm currently working out the PhD. That is going to be a life-changing program. To get into the bachelor's program, you have to have proven that you have mastery over being offended in crucial places where most people would be afraid to be offended, or to voice being offended in the current culture, where it's still, being offended is still unfortunately looked upon as a bad trait, and we're working with that. We have, in the master's I don't want to blow my own whistle, but in the PhD program, we have a plan for those people who aren't on board yet. But this is part of, we'll get to that. So in the basic bachelor's, you have to prove that you have publicly proclaimed being offended in those scarier moments, with mixed company, say at Thanksgiving, I'm saying this, please don't be offended. And if you are, you get a gold star too. Number 2 for the day, baby showers. Funerals, the dreaded New Year's Eve party, and your own birthday party that others have planned extensively for you. Now, these are high end. I mean, this isn't like at the level that I'm working at, being offended, but this is, if you can write me an essay on those major moments of being offended, and who was the person in the room, or who was the collective group that you were up against, as many details as possible. Now, in the master's program, that's just the basic entry for the master's program. And what you learn at the end of the BA program is how then to get other people who don't get offended. See, we got to get more people on board with this philosophy, because there's like no end to what we can do in the world with this. Think about it. If we're making people, if they're understanding the benefit of this, if we can tie it to the major religions and some of the New Age ideas, we're in like Flynn. If we can connect it to environmentalism, as it's already going off like gangbusters, hallelujah, hail Greta, hail Greta. And then we've got the transgenders, and we have to have everyone a special group, because everyone needs to be offended. Like, don't you see, it's the way to bring consciousness to a whole other level of being here. And then it's a no-brainer. You're always thinking about your neighbor, And here's let me get ahead of myself. So that's a whole art form. Forgive me for saying this, trick people into being offended. You have to, in the master's program, you have to have at least one person who really does not get offended, that you have to find somebody who really, in fact, even prides themselves on not being offended. You make them a case study. And this is a program that I have a lot of pride around, because you have to learn how to get into their head and twist their arguments. In fact, I have to be honest, and this is, I know, a select group, you have to learn the fine art of gaslighting just a little bit, because you have to be able to twist the arguments around and help them. You need to help the people who don't get offended. You have to them gently escort them into being offended without them realizing it. And then when they get defended, then you point out that they're offended. And then they get more defensive, and then at some point you get them against the wall and they finally admit that they're offended. And this is, I have to say, don't try this at home. Don't do this without some guidance of you need at least 2 years after the BA program to know how to do that skillfully. But I am proud of Academie de Offensive. And I'm incredibly honored to be able to share this. Now, the PhD program that I'm currently working on, the content there, that's a whole other level of the subtlety of living in being offended. Even I have not conquered this. In my sleep, I'm working on being offended in my dreams, and that's a whole other level of expertise. I've gotten there. I'd say about 4 days a week, roughly, consistently, I'm offended in my dreams. But I'm going for the whole. I want to go for 7. I'm going for 7 by the time the PhD program goes up. Now, the thing is, if in my fantasy of where this whole program of the philosophy of being offended, under the guise of helping people really get traction on some of the sort of religious ideas or new age ideas that they haven't really been able to grok, this is a really easy way to do it, because people naturally want to think about themselves. And so it's wow, if they can understand that this knowing how you're offended makes you more self-conscious and aware, and then you're able to take more self-responsibility and tell people, explain your feelings and what you want and how you are offended, that just is going to make for a more peaceful, loving society. I don't see how it could not. Think about it. Oh yes, I really, really love this program. Academie de Offensive is in a secret location in the northern hemisphere of Iceland. You'll after you jump through some hoops and offer up your essays, there's essays to actually come look at the property and come to the school, the Academy, before you can enter. Now, after, just to tantalize you a little bit, going back to the master's program, the graduate program, it's, getting into people's brains. I know if I've offended somebody with the gaslight, I know it could bring up trauma for people who've been gaslit, God knows. Let's give a moment of silence for those who have been traumatized by gaslighters, and I apologize for that trigger. Let's just take a moment of silence for all who have been gaslighted and who have been triggered by me using it without saluting you first. Thank you. See? We were just in a moment. We were in a moment of awareness right there. What went down? Oh, there we are again. Screen went blank. I guess the silence was too long. Academie de Offensive. Now, I'll tantalize you where I see this going. Now, in certain areas and groups of people, they openly are offended. And it's, go ahead and take a look at them. There's probably YouTube videos, look at Antifa situations, look at, anything around our beloved, I don't even want to tell you, where to find it. Just put offended in Google, and you should find some true masterful performances and inspiration videos around, skills and approaches that you could apply pronto, even before you enter the academy. Now, part of the PhD program, and this is where I have to, like I said, I have things I need to flesh out, is going to be how to make this a worldwide movement. And that's where we're going to need the creme de la creme, creme de la creme, pardon me. If I offended those who actually speak French, I have a long way to go. Forgive me. I apologize. Let's have a moment for those who speak French, who are native French speakers, but I so much want to speak French. Oh my God, I so much want to. It's such a great language. It's so better than English. It makes you feel so much more. Well, first of all, it's such a great language that goes with being offended. It has that little extra, that little extra thing that I don't know what it is. I think it's just it's a romance language and it's passion. And so when God, it's good. I'm getting excited thinking about being offended in French. So part of it is how to infiltrate communities who are calm and peaceful and who accept each other. We have a problem there, kids. That's not going to bode well in the greater arc of our endeavor. How could they have calm and peace and acceptance? I think they're in denial, and it's going to be our job if you choose to go the long road, to exploit that calmness and peace. We need to get them to a place where they second guess it and they crack. And that's the program that I'm keeping under wraps like Fort Knox. Because ultimately, I keep referring to it, I've yet to take you there, here's my world, I'll say it once today. And Academie de Offensive, I think you've got about 3 more minutes, and I need to take this ship back over. Well, I hope I'm not offending you, Rev Zoe. I want the ship back over in 3 minutes. Okay, so I'll say this. How I see taking over the world, if we can get everyone to be offended, no one will leave their home, no one will do anything, no one will participate. And this way, we have the complete solution to the whole environmental problem, the population problem, technology problem, car problem, and it's just a quiet, easy way to just completely annihilate the whole human race. That's the master plan. Okay. Good. Thank you. And don't let the door hit you behind. All right. Well, clearly you recognize that it was me playing fun. Having a sip of my, I call them my gay beers, non-alcoholic bucklers from Holland. I've gotten on this. I just started drinking non-alcoholic beers, and I've enjoyed them ever since. It's good to take breaks. This is a long break. We'll see. I'm not missing it, but I'm enjoying these. So if you hear me slugging, I'm giving you a plug, Buckler. Here we go. Ready? I thought to myself, how can I get people to think about stuff by supporting it? ergo my whole approach to the art of being offended. And I really think some of the arguments that Academy presented are how people think. People actually think it's a form of taking responsibility. People honestly think it makes them more aware. I really believe, I was being outrageous, but I do believe people believe this, and this is very strange to me, and not. Because, human nature wants to make things easy. It wants things to be nice. That's just our nature. And that's a noble thought, like we said in the first podcast. Wanting to feel better is the first step on any spiritual path. But we're so attached to the senses that we go there first. And then we want to make any philosophy or any idea or spiritual idea bend to our deep addiction to feeling good, and having pleasant experiences, and making the world, quote unquote, a better place, which means the place that we like, the way we want it to look. And that's just human nature. It's funny, I really don't have much to say after this. I think she said it all. Ironically, it was a sort of a strange new way for me to reveal what I was really wanting to talk about. Because I wanted to also come in as my own sort of screwy way to support people who are going that road, to reflect on it, if they even could get past the first few minutes of knowing that I'm doing a parody. And I'm doing a parody because God knows we've all gone through it. I think back to, but most of us grow out of it, right? How offended I was as a young child growing up with my mom. And thank God my mom and dad were notoriously laughing at me a lot, and in the most loving way, to help teach me about humility. And if there was a great segue, that would be the segue. It's a funny little segue. It's something else I wanted to speak about. And in some way it is connected. I was really reflecting on the gender issues, the gender sexuality issues. And I think it's sort of a subcategory of Academy's presentation a little bit ago. I am, I suppose, if we were in the political, probably a more libertarian type. I don't consider myself, well, whatever, it doesn't matter. Live and let live is more my way. And that would fall into the philosophy I advocate too. Being able to serve your fellow man, to be loving and kind, means that there has to be a lot of accepting of oneself and other people within some parameters of common decency. And so I wanted to tackle the transgender situation, which I really don't think is an issue. And I'm going to try to break this down. I personally don't have an issue with what anybody wants to practice or think of themselves as. I think that there's nothing new in our world culture. There's always been, in certain we say countries in the East, they have a third gender. I think it's Pakistan and those areas up there. Then we have our, I can't think of right now, what's it called? When you're not born with either part, that whole thing. I think there's room for all of it. My issue is not with that. My issue is with anybody who perceives that the world owes them something. That's my issue. I say, fly your freak flag high, go for it. I actually was cross-dressing at a very young age myself. Most people have, and I think I don't have a problem. Most people don't have a problem. But where I sit as whatever I am to people, sometimes people think of me as a pain in the ass, a teacher, or her, it, the thing, RZ. Some people like to still call me Zoe. I think that they don't like to, I think some people don't like to call me Rev Zoe in their own defiance, or they're not comfortable with it, or they're trying to get a rise out of me. I'm not sure. I don't care, but I think it is cute. Well, I don't know if I think it's cute, but I do notice all this stuff. I don't care. But if you were to ask me, I would introduce myself as Rev Zoe. Okay, that being said, it's all good. Where was I going with this? Oh, let me see if I can get my train back. Train, choo-choo, come back here with the train. Oh, it's not what gender you want to be and all that. It's that there's a couple things that concern me. It's the lack of self-esteem. If we could focus on self-esteem for people, that they have a deep sense of themselves first, before we introduce victimology to them as kids, before we introduce entitlementology to them as kids, to actually cultivate self-esteem for who they are. I find that a lot of people, they use these situations, the gender, the sexuality, the this, the that, not as the thing itself, but as a cloak to not address deeper painful things. And what the society does, they try to address it at the superficial without getting into the deeper core issue of self-confidence, deep self-confidence. So I think there's more of a problem. Most people they don't have a problem with what you want to do or how you want to do it. And there'll always be people that are a pain in the ass and don't accept and will mock you and do everything else. So what? I'm speaking specifically, you guys. I'm speaking specifically to you. I'm speaking to people who are interested in spiritual ideas or walking the path. This is not for the secular crew who just want to all stand around and agree with each other. That's not what this is about. This is to get people to think. I'm not sitting here trying to sing to the choir or get the people on the choir. I'm trying to explore it with a fine-tooth comb, okay? This is not a political pod. This is a deep, well, relatively semi-deep, thoughtful pod. Well, that's the goal. So the transgender thing, the sexuality thing is not the issue. It's the deep insecurity that's being propagated. Is that the right word? You know that word. With young people and other people, that they need all this attention and okayness from the external world. And then I can hear, well, people have been prejudiced against and all this stuff. I'm like, yes, that's all true. But why not start with letting them grow in true self-confidence first? There was somebody recently, she says, I'm born, I can't, she's that lady, she upsets the usual suspects. Oh God, what's her name? But she says, look, I'm a female, I have a female body, but I identify as a male, and I just do that because that's what makes me feel better, but I don't need anybody to tell me that's okay or blah, blah, blah. She's pissed off a lot of people because she doesn't fall into the usual categories. I can't think of her name. But it's kind of like that. Why can't you, you have your thing and you do your thing, you know? I'm not trying to get into the whole conversation around gender and the complexity of transgender and everything else. But I'm just trying to get into it as an avenue for a couple things. One, that flying your freak flag high, being yourself, that's fantastic. But do it for you. The second part is we have issues with deep self-confidence and self-esteem and victimology, which are really the core issues that I see, and that's what I'm responding to. It's not the content of gender or sexuality or whatever your bag is. It's this redundant exploitation of victimology as a way of living, which was spoken to actually in the first part with Academie de Offensive. Just to get you think about that. And if I was to say also what's kind of lovely, and especially for young kids who don't know Dick from Adam, just to say anything they want to do is great. that's not going to steal their unicorns to put some limits on stuff or to say, yeah, today you feel that and it could change tomorrow. But until you're an adult, this is your identity. Like, you're this, and you can dress up or do anything you want, but you don't get to change your sex until you're 18. I don't think that's a problem. That's the role of parents, to have some form, there has to be a little bit of conformality for them to be able to parent you well, with freedom within that. I don't care what culture or anything else. Let the kid grow. Let them have a little compression around them. They can express themselves in that. It's like this woman said, who I can't think of the writer. She goes, look, I have a female body and identify as male, but I function through the world as female, but I feel myself to be male. But I don't torture everybody with it. I wish I could remember her name. Teach kids confidence. Teach kids confidence. True confidence, and open their hearts to God and things beyond this world of physicality. Help them, and again, I'm speaking to a particular group of people here, help them move past just seeing their identity or their value based on their looks. Now I'm expanding the discussion, based on their looks or what sexual predilection they have. Like, don't just bow to that aspect of their existence. Open them up to ideas of God, of the divine, higher philosophy, non-dualism, the ideas of that you're not just your mind and body. In fact, you're not your mind and body. You're something much greater. I think that would be a great boon to help those who are some of my students and audience to come at it that way. So I will say this. I wanted to end on a high note. I think that the call to express oneself is fantastic. I think there can be as many genders as you want. I think it's like RK said, as many people on the world as many kinds of religions there can be. But with confidence and self-confidence and security and a sense of connection to something other than yourself as a body or mind would help that, ground that, and make that really palatable to the world and the people around you, versus it turning into a totalitarian, zealous operation. Trust that made sense. It's weird not to see yourself and you're just talking and I'm seeing the blue lines. God, you could just continue raving. What's that woman's name who wrote that book? She wrote a book. The feminists were mad with her because she wasn't just proclaiming the choir talk around chicks. The woman who is a woman but identifies as a male. Gosh, I can't think of her name. You guys probably are saying it right now, right? It's going to be that 3 o'clock in the morning remember thing, right? Oh, I remember her name. Blah, blah, blah. Email me if you do. So yes, be oneself. Pull out Emerson's self-reliance. If don't just focus on what the kids want. Say, yes, that's great. You can do that, but let's talk about confidence. Let's talk about what really makes you tick. Something bigger than you kids. Like do something well. Do something for this culture. Do something for your kids in this culture. Bigger than just trying to make them feel comfortable. Help them with true self-confidence. When I was bullied, my mom didn't kowtow. I came home. She didn't kowtow and say, we got to do intervention. We got to go to the school. No, she said, all right, you're a pussy. I'm like, I am. She's an ex-Marine, whatever. You don't have to do this. But she stood right up, put a pillow on her belly, and says, hit me, Zoe. I'm like, no, Mom, I'm crying. She goes, hit me. You got to at least try to hit. So I hit her in the belly a couple times. She took me out to throw a baseball because I'm a complete friggin' geek with the sports. Terrorized, teased. But through that, my mom, her giving me time and teaching me by addressing it directly, was telling me, this is life. You got to learn how to stand up. So I wasn't able to fight well or do all that stuff, but in that process, it helped me grow in confidence in an indirect way. How it all happened, I didn't know, but through that, I realized I went back to school, and in a very short time, I realized I had a sense of humor, and that was how I dealt with the bullies. So So I salute whatever gender you want to be, rock and roll. Whatever you want to do, rock and roll. God loves you, man. As many people as there are on this earth, so many religions there should be. It reminds us of that great story, and then I'll sign off, I just heard it the other night. I was listening to a lecture on Sri Ramakrishna, where I hail from. And he had some people show up in usual, pundits arguing over their particular religion or philosophy, the usual situation. He stopped him. He's like, stop. I'm gonna, we say, cut it into a RZ thumbnail. But essentially it's like, and this has been told many times, but it's like this person is talking about the truth of reality of God is like the horn of a trunk of an elephant, and the other one's like, no, it's the tail of the elephant. And the other one's like, no, because they're blinded and they only are seeing and touching what they are actually touching what they can touch. They can't see or touch the whole elephant. I think I left out a couple points. I think some of them are, well, anyway, he was using that as the story to the pundits who were sitting in front of him. I got ahead of myself. The story that he told the pundits was there was some sages or some rishis or some religious guys were blinded and they were touching an elephant, and they were all saying that their truth was supreme truth. And a master came by and says, y'all are wrong. You're talking about your truth is this, and your truth is this, and your truth. Take your blindfolds off. See, you don't even see the whole elephant. You see? So as we practice our little expression of ourselves, as we walk our little path, know it to be just one part of the elephant. That the whole world doesn't bow to you, nor should it, and nor should you. But that to take it in inclusiveness, this true sense of inclusiveness, without becoming a wuss. Stand firm in yourself. Fly your freak flag high and let your brother fly their freak flag high. Don't make other people bend to you. It's not kind. Okay. Woo! Well, that was a good ride. Well, over here, I'll see how it goes over there. Much aloha to your back. God bless you. This is fun. I'm gonna keep getting better at this. I thank you. Alan Gaskill, producer, and he made that fine introduction song. That's the Chalice and the Sword. Signing off. Rev Zoe. Bada bing, bada boom.